We owe a lot to the pioneers in cancer medicine who have been and still are developing new and better cancer treatments. Few realize that the way cancer patients are cared for today is greatly influenced by the work done years ago at a small community hospital in Colorado Springs. These advances in cancer care have been mostly lost in the current literature and in the modern media, but the foundation built in Colorado Springs lives on today throughout the world. That's what this story is about. It's about a millionaire who was diagnosed in the 1930s with cancer, not once, but twice. It's about a young Cuban doctor who was given the opportunity and the resources to build a world-class cancer program. And it's about the young residents who came through the program and then went to cancer hospitals around the world to pass on the skills they learned at the Penrose Cancer Hospital. The story begins with a man named Spencer Penrose.
Spencer Penrose was from a prominent Philadelphia family. He was somewhat the black sheep of the family. He had a brother who was a very powerful senator from Pennsylvania, another brother who was a well-regarded geologist, and another that was a doctor. Spencer graduated last in his class from Harvard, and perhaps was most famous as a student for how quickly he could drink a gallon of beer. And like so many people, he ventured west to reinvent himself. And so he came to the Pikes Peak region in 1890 and was drawn here in part because of his childhood friend, Charles Tutt, who'd already established a business in Colorado Springs. But he came here at a good time. Gold had just been discovered in Cripple Creek. Tutt had some interests in Cripple Creek and invited Spencer Penrose to participate in those business ventures. And Tutt and Penrose made their first fortune in the mines of Cripple Creek. Most famously, their mine was called the COD, the Cash on Delivery Mine. That kind of started the Penrose business empire. He was a natural entrepreneur, something of a rake, I think. Kind of a ladies' man, loved to drink, loved to smoke fine cigars, enjoy life, and up until he met Julie, a committed bachelor. Julie had come here, as so many other people, because of health. Her husband had tuberculosis, and they came here to hopefully have him recover. That did not work. He passed away, and so she became a very eligible member of society. Toward the end of Spencer's life, he was struck with cancer of the throat. I believe the first bout he suffered was in 1932. Because of his resources, he had the chance to go off and seek cure. I believe he was treated in Paris. Cancer apparently was successfully treated, at least for a time.
In 1932, Spencer Penrose went to the Radium Institute in Paris seeking treatment for cancer of the larynx. He was referred to the care of Dr. Henry Coutard, a pioneer in the use of radiation to treat cancer. Penrose also met Coutard's young assistant, Dr. Juan Del Rigado. Following Penrose's treatment, lasting 6 weeks of twice-daily treatments, he was sent home and considered cured. Dr. Del Rigado passed away in 1999, but we found a rare clip of him describing, in his own words, how he met Spencer and Julie Penrose in 1932.
Julie Penrose, the wife of Spencer Penrose. I first met her in Paris in 1932 when Spencer Penrose was being treated for cancer of the pharynx, from which he cured by 180 kilovolts radiotherapy, by the way. And then he developed a new form of cancer of the esophagus, from which he died here in Colorado Springs 7 years later.
When Spencer Penrose acquired cancer, another kind of cancer, and had to be treated, he looked to find where Henry Coutard had gone and found him in Chicago. Went there to be treated, and it was so hot, it was August, and it was so hot, he said, I'm just going to buy this equipment and bring it to Colorado Springs, and asked Henry Coutard to come here and treat him. So the equipment from General Electric came and was put out at their house at El Pomar.
Penrose's great desire to have a cancer clinic in Colorado Springs led to the creation of the Penrose Pavilion, an annex to Glockner Hospital. It was dedicated in 1941, 2 years after Penrose's death. The pavilion, which housed the Penrose Tumor Institute, was headed by Dr. Coutard, who took charge of radiation therapy and the scientific research for the alleviation of cancer.
Era of tuberculosis had ended, or was in the process of ending. There was this new concern with cancer and the resources provided by the Penroses to try to battle cancer. And of course, that is the legacy that we now live with Penrose Hospital today.
It was clear that Coutard's passion was in research, and after serving Colorado Springs for almost a decade, he returned to Paris in 1949, where he died only a few months later. But in those few years, he had laid the foundation for a world-renowned cancer program. Julie Penrose traveled to Columbia, Missouri, and invited Dr. Juan Delgado, who had trained under Dr. Coutard in Paris, to come to Colorado Springs.
Now, after he died, Mrs. Penrose visited me at the Ellis Michel Cancer Hospital in Columbia, Missouri. She saw the institution, she saw the work, and she said, "This is what I want to do in Colorado Springs, in memory of my husband."
Of course, Mrs. Penrose had, when she decided she wanted my dad to come and he agreed to, she wanted him now. And he said, but I have a child in school, we had all these things to tend to. She said, "Come, we'll take care of him all when you get there."
So she decided to bring him here, but my dad said, "I won't come unless I can be certified." And so she went to the Colorado Certifying Board and talked to them about how important it was for her to get my dad to come here. And the next thing my dad knew is that he had a letter stating that the licensing board had decided that they would allow any graduate of the class of 1937 from University of Paris to apply to be hired in Colorado, because we were not hiring anyone from a foreign country at the time. Because he was the only graduate of the class of 1937 from the University of Paris, he was allowed to apply, and that's how he got the job.
She was very influential, and I think has to be credited with so much in this community, for one thing. But in that isolated field of radiation therapy, she played her part in advancing that, certainly.
When Delgado came to Penrose, there was a concept by Julie Penrose to build a cancer hospital separate from the community hospital that he envisioned. And he convinced her that it's better to have a high-end community hospital working with the cancer hospital together. So this is the broad-based thinking of community cancer centers. This was the first concept, because now we still have major NCI cancer centers, but majority of cancer patients in this country are treated at a community hospital like Penrose. So he was very much ahead of the game, thinking this is the way it needs to be done with high quality.
Dr. Frank Wilson trained under Dr. Delgado at the Penrose Cancer Hospital, and he then went on to a long career treating cancer patients and training radiation oncologists.
So radiation therapy per se is the delivery of ionizing radiation as a treatment for cancer. But to me, this is to be distinguished from radiation oncology, which is the practice of oncology by someone who uses radiation therapy as their treatment modality. In our traditional way of thinking, we are the true oncologists because we are the only discipline of medicine that trains exclusively in oncology. All of our training interval is devoted to the study of cancer and the treatment of cancer. This is not true of the surgical disciplines nor of the medical oncology disciplines, but our entire focus throughout our period of training is oncology. At the end of World War II, there were no more than 50 or 60 people who practiced radiation therapy in the United States.
There were only a very few, like Dr. Delgado, who would achieve that position, I mean, as being the ones who are putting a foundation for the whole specialty.
And none of them were trained in the United States. If you wanted to have any credibility whatsoever, those who were interested had to go abroad to London or Paris or Sweden or to Toronto to receive some training in radiation oncology. It simply wasn't available in the United States.
Dr. Shabazian is one of the residents who trained under and then went on to work closely with Dr. Delgado at the Penrose Cancer Hospital. This clip is from a presentation he gave in 2001.
By the 1960s, a full 1/3 of all full-time radiation therapists in this country were trained right here at the Penrose Cancer Hospital. By now, many of our trainees have trained their own residents, and that number's in the hundreds. The residency program at the Penrose Cancer Hospital was one of the most cherished accomplishments of Dr. Delgado, who put a great deal of emphasis on it, as he knew very well that his work would be continued to bigger heights by his trainees long after he was gone.
Dr. Delgado was the first to create a US-based radiation oncology training program. And he did that in 1951 with the support of a grant from the National Cancer Institute.
Soon thereafter, Stanford and Yale, but Penrose was one of the first training programs for radiation oncologists. And Dr. Delgado, when he trained his residents, most of them went on to the National Cancer Institute to do additional research and then start programs of their own to train radiation oncologists. There was a tremendous shortage of this in this specialty.
I have to say that he was very demanding of the residents in training. And then, first of all, he was very sensible guy, and he could detect which guy is serious about what he wants to do there and which one was not. And we had residents in training that were taking it, maybe it's all right, maybe it's not all right, but others are convinced that this is what they want to do. And of course he wanted the latter, and he didn't spare his punishment of the others sometimes.
There were a lot of things outside the clinic that were required that were meant to make us stronger as people, able to defend our point of view, able to organize our thoughts, able to deliver an effective speech. And there was a lot of focus on that. We didn't know that that's what it was at the time, but it was.
In 1953, Dr. Delgado then began to leave his mark on history in establishing the first center in the United States specifically dedicated to training radiotherapists. Dr. Delgado's training program took a multidisciplinary approach and was well received, as by 1960, 1/3 of all residents in therapeutic radiation in the United States were trained by him. But he taught these young doctors so much more than just how to be a doctor.
When it was lunchtime and he met with his residents, they had that rule. You could talk about anything but medicine. My dad always made sure that people talked about religion and politics or anything else than medicine. It was very important to him that his residents not be the stereotypic physician who knows only medicine and only science, but that they also had some submersion in politics and religion.
He always called medicine, if no one ever wanted to talk anything but one thing, it was a hardening of the categories, he said. If they didn't have something, he'd have them learn about it and come and report it at a dinner, at a round table at the dinner or something like that.
This is how burnout was avoided, because I remember I gave a talk on Egyptian archaeology, and somebody else gave a talk on photography, and somebody else gave a talk on their religious beliefs, and it could be anything. Whatever it was extremely interesting, and it was a humanizing experience. And we actually have done that in my department. Now it's called diversity and inclusion exercises, where people explain who they are, why they believe what they believe, etc. So in many of these things, you know, we were in our own particular way, we were 25 years ahead of what's being discussed today.
And it was very interesting because everybody was taking a position, and he was trying to tell us also, you have to learn to take your own position.
Some of the topics were pretty hot. Boy, you better learn how to control your emotions and your anger, because you very frequently are going to find yourself on the opposite side of the opinions he was expressing. And if you didn't have, if you couldn't defend yourself, you were going to suffer.
Not only did Dr. Delregado guide his students in their medical careers, but also in their personal lives.
He did intrude on the love lives of his residents, and he would take them aside. And actually, I think they looked for his advice. I think he was a father figure to them, and they cared what he thought. So I know of 3 residents who approached him, or that he had strong feelings about what they were doing, and he told them. He wasn't going to let someone make a mistake that was going to affect their whole lives. He had a resident whose wife would not support her husband. Let's say her husband wanted to go to the Radiological Society, but he couldn't go because his wife wanted him to do something else. I wouldn't know the circumstances, but he lectured many a wife on how it was their role to support their husbands because their husbands were doing something of major significance. Well, I remember he had one resident who was conflicted between 2 women, and he brought both for my dad to meet, and he chose one.
We made every case into a Sherlock Holmes case. Virtually every case has interesting aspects that you could challenge your thinking with, and that's what was exciting about what we were doing.
He believed in it being a clinician. That was his word he used a lot. That you had to have a personal contact, care about people, care about the pathology, not just the way of administering a treatment.
It isn't technical only. We're clinicians first and foremost. So the number one question is not, first you have to know the diagnosis, what the pathology is, but then you look at the patient. Do they need to be treated or do they not? Are they beyond cure, and do you need to palliate? Palliate's a dirty word in this country. It is not. It's to help the patient's needs. Sometimes you have to face that you can't cure this, but you can help their suffering tremendously and improve their quality of life. Those are things that Delregado taught his residents.
There are more dead technologies on the path that radiation oncology has pursued since 1969 than you can shake a stick at, and it hasn't stopped. And he used to say, he made this analogy many times when patients would ask about that. And he said, we can get in a Cadillac and drive to Denver from Colorado Springs. Or we can get in a broken down Chevrolet and make that same trip. He said we might get there slower, but we'll get there just the same. And he said whether we get there safely or not is not dependent on whether it's a Cadillac or a Chevrolet. It depends on who's driving the car. And he would say, and we are driving the car better than anywhere you might consider. And that was true, because even with relatively primitive equipment, if you knew how to use it, you could put the radiation in the right spot. And that's all there is to it, even today.
Even though residents were being trained by the world's foremost cancer doctor, some questioned his use of outdated technologies.
Looking back at it, the equipment that we had at Penrose was very rudimentary. It was, the cobalt unit was of a primitive type. It was serial number 9. And by the 1960s, when I was there, technology was marching on elsewhere, but it was not marching on there at Penrose. Most people would not have been satisfied using that at that point in time. And so Dr. Cox, a resident and good friend of mine, we were talking at our desks, and we became concerned that maybe we were at the wrong place. because we'd been hearing about linear accelerators at Stanford and betatrons and these highly sophisticated equipments that were beginning to appear. And so we said, well, maybe we are at the wrong place. Maybe we should go train where there are those capabilities. And so we said, well, let's go ask Dr. Delregado and see what he thinks. And maybe he'll tell us we should go somewhere else. So we made an appointment and we went in his office, and he said, what is this about? You asked for this appointment. Then we explained to him what we were there for and what our question was. And he got real mad at us and said, you guys just don't get it, do you? We said, no, we don't get it. We kind of said, well, what do you mean? He said, you're here to learn how to think, not how to give more radiation. You're here to learn how to think. And when you leave here, you can go anywhere you want and learn how to treat more cancer worse. But while you're here, your job is to learn how to think. And we said, thank you very much for clearing this up for us. We didn't ask again.
By 1952, Penrose Cancer Hospital was recognized by the American College of Surgeons as being one of the 3 approved cancer hospitals west of the Mississippi. Only 10 other hospitals in the U.S. had received such recognition, and it did not take long before specialists from all over the world began to travel to Colorado Springs to study the methods of treatment used there. Dr. Delregado was well ahead of his time when it came to interdisciplinary medicine. As a cancer specialist, he sought out the opinions of the pathologists and the surgeons to find the best treatment for his patient. Practice that wasn't common at the time. Soon after his arrival at the Penrose Cancer Hospital in 1949, he took this concept and created the annual Cancer Seminar. Again, we have rare footage of Dr. Delregado explaining the Cancer Seminar in his own words.
We established here the Penrose Cancer Seminar, which operated in Colorado Springs for 24 consecutive years, and in which participated radiodiagnosticians and pathologists and surgeons, not only from the United States, from abroad. And that brought quite a reputation to this institution.
Expert opinion was sought about a dozen cases from pathologists, radiologists, and surgeons. And their diagnoses and their recommendations were summarized in advance of Cancer Seminar. So when the case was presented, the expert pathologist would review the slides, give a differential diagnosis, and make his own diagnosis. Each of the disciplines were represented by a national or international expert who spoke, and they were phenomenally brilliant.
They have taken a biopsy usually, or an excision if it is possible, and the pathologist would have to give a report on that. And then they had done all kinds of X-ray studies also in those days, and the radiologist would have his reports on that. And they would also invite a surgeon, a capable surgeon in that field, what he would have done after that, after they did it through the radiology, then the pathology and the diagnosis already.
And that was very, very popular among those professional groups, particularly the pathologists and secondarily among the radiologists, because it was an intellectual challenge. And these diagnoses from these experts would be all over the map.
All those segments were studied ahead of time because the chief made, I think, 300 slides of pathology to be sent to 300 pathologists throughout the world.
I always knew when they were coming on because our dining room table would suddenly have 8 leaves in it. And it was a huge table. It was Dr. Coutard's. It was left in the house. And we usually had it collapsed to just be a round table, which was plenty big. But at seminar time, all those 8 leaves went into that table. And those black lacquer boxes were all around the table. And my mother would go through and put, I don't remember how many, 12 or 16 slides in a box. And then I would help out. When I got older, I would help out because she could trust me to put the right slide in the right slot. And then I remember we always ended the box by taking a Kleenex and folding it into quarter, so it would be a long quarter of a Kleenex. And then you'd fold it in half, put the middle in the middle, and then lay those 2 ends down over it and then put the top on. And then those were mailed to China, Russia, South America, every country you could name.
We sent slides out all over the country to doctors who were going to attend. So those slides had to be put in boxes, in little black patent leather boxes, I call them. And my mother and my sister and I probably my brother too, I don't know, he was younger, would walk around the dining room table tons and tons of times, picking up a slide, putting it in, you know, just putting those slide boxes together for the seminars.
The days before the seminar, he would go out to the Broadmoor and he would check on what they were doing, how they were setting things up, what rooms things were going in. He didn't like to let other people have that responsibility. He wanted to make sure everything went smoothly. So he would go out there and check on everything. And we always knew it was seminar time because he'd be a little bit uptight.
After they had sent those these mailings, they had to submit their opinion, and they did. And on the day of the the conference at the Broadmoor Hotel, they started explaining why they gave their diagnosis that this way or that way.
They tend to cluster around a diagnosis, and then the expert would look at that list of opinions that have been expressed, and he would defend his own opinion against what others thought. Sometimes there was unanimity of opinion.
So in that kind of a presentation, at least he made the people aware of that. Mistakes are made, and let's all face it, we can do it anytime too.
Along with the resident training and working with doctors from around the world through his cancer seminars, Dr. Del Regato worked tirelessly on what would become the most comprehensive book on cancer. It was simply called Cancer.
My dad was always available to us, but he was not the dad that took you to the park and took you rock climbing or kite flying, but he was always available to us. He spent most of his time at home sitting in his living room chair revising his book on cancer.
That one of the reasons the prestige was so great is that in 1949, Dr. Del Regato published the first textbook of cancer.
Dr. Del Regato, while I was at Penrose, worked with Dr. Ackerman, a very well-known pathologist, to write the very first textbook dedicated to cancer. And so it really put together the data for different sites of how to manage, and so it can be systematically done correctly.
It included, for every known form of cancer, an A to Z description of its characteristics, its behavior, its treatment, etc. It was published in 38 countries, and so it was a worldwide resource, the first and only resource for cancer in most medical libraries around the world. That was the Google for cancer for a long period of time.
He wrote and read, but all of it took place in this amount of space, and he was totally dedicated to that. He could concentrate on it when he needed to.
It was not a radiation therapy book. It was not a radiation oncology book. It was an oncology book. It goes without saying, we had to be familiar with everything that was in that book, and it's about that thick. That brought a lot of visibility to the cancer hospital, and that was well known. And when we were there, the drawing area, you could draw a circle with about a 300 or 400 mile radius around Colorado Springs that drew people from the western slope and from out into Kansas and northern Oklahoma and Nebraska. And they came not just for cancer treatment, but also if they were worried that they had cancer, they would come. If they had unique cancer problems that nobody knew what to do with.
The story wouldn't be complete without seeing cancer through the eyes of a cancer survivor. Kathy was diagnosed with cancer as a teenager in 1956.
I got a stomach ache, and so I stayed home from school because my stomach was bloated. After the third day, my stomach got really big, and my belly button popped out. I looked like I was 6 months pregnant. So in those days, it was more expensive to go downtown to see the doctor than it was to run over half a block from our house to the emergency room to see the doctor after he got off work. So our family doctor met me at the emergency room, and he was examining my stomach, and he said, "Oh, I think you might have an infection in your belly button," is what he said. And while he was saying that, he had his hand on my abdomen, and he jumped back. He said, "Oh my God." He said, "Honey, can you just lay here?" He was from the South. "Honey, I'm gonna go get a nun to come in here. We need to examine you." So they took an x-ray, and I had this huge tumor. Within 3 days, the tumor had grown to the size of a large cantaloupe. And of course, not even knowing I had it. I had just turned 15 in October. This was in January of '56. So by 3 days later, they had me in the hospital to remove it. They took the tumor out, and they took it was an ovarian tumor, and they took the left ovary with it, but scraped the right ovary and the uterus and left them in. They took me down to Dr. Del Regato's cancer pavilion to start radiation treatments. But cobalt radiation was the most modern one you could have. And actually, I did not know this at the time. I didn't find it out for 5 years. But the only other young lady who had had an ovarian tumor till that time was 8 years before mine. And she died within 6 months. I don't know what her treatment was or anything, but that was the story that my mother knew. And I just thought it was a pain in the neck because I had to come over and get these treatments every day. And Dr. Del Regato sat me down and said, "You're going to get these treatments to prevent any more tumors from growing." And he took excellent care of me while I was going through the 6 months. I'd run over to the hospital every day for treatment, and then my mother would pick me up in the car with the rest of the kids and drive us to high school. So I was in the hospital for 3.5 weeks, which in today's world would never happen. I immediately went into pseudomenopause, and so I had hot flashes. You could test your watch. I had them every 45 minutes. And I just kind of accepted it, that it was lucky I didn't have any more tumors. I knew all of his associates, Dr. Chabazian, Dr. Wilson, because they were all residents at the time. And Dr. Del Regato was very protective of me, making sure that the residents were treating me with respect as a young girl. So he literally saved my life.
It was in 1973, after 25 years of service, that Dr. Del Regato resigned as director of Penrose Cancer Hospital. From 1974 until his death at the age of 90 in 1999, Dr. Juan Del Regato worked as a professor at the South Florida College of Medicine in Tampa, Florida. He will be remembered not only as a pioneer in American radiation therapy, but for founding the first training program in therapeutic radiology in the United States.
Ann and I remember that when he died, and we were reading in all the newspapers throughout the country about his death, that the headline that we really liked best was the one that said, "He may have touched someone you love." And that's how we think of it, because here we meet those people. We meet the parents or even the patients of people that he treated, and they remember him very fondly.
There are letters from Malaysia and Thailand and Canada down through all of North America to South America and India and European countries, just all over the world. There were people he touched.
I mean, he had a very broad outlook. I mean, all these things were not developed that we take for granted today. He was somehow involved in every one of these critical things, the formation of our society, and the importance of working with your colleagues in other specialties. I mean, the surgeons at that time didn't understand what the indications for radiation were. He met with the surgeons and said, you know, we need to apply radiation after this because it'll help reduce recurrences. I mean, he was a big educator.
The research, training, and knowledge created at the original Penrose Cancer Hospital continues today, and not just in Colorado Springs. Those young doctors who received their training with Dr. Del Rigato in Colorado Springs took that knowledge to hospitals and clinics around the world. And those young doctors grew up and then passed on the legacy of Dr. Del Rigato by training the doctors who are providing cancer care today. As with any good story, we don't want it to end. The good news is that this story doesn't end here. The foundation of cancer care that was built at the Penrose Cancer Hospital in Colorado Springs lives on today throughout the world. Thanks to the vision of Spencer and Julie Penrose, the cutting-edge research done by Dr. Henry Coutard, and Dr. Juan Del Rigato, who took the resources and training that were provided to him and passed that on to a new generation of radiation therapy.